It's time for another episode of Agency Exposed. Hello, gentlemen. How are you?
How are you? Exposed. None of us are really that
it's
exposed today.
In many parts of the world, here in Tennessee, it's very hot. In Europe right now,
It's very hot.
It's more hot.
extremely hot. Yeah, and they don't have ACs. We have a few really great Englishmen that work for us, and I was asking them, I'm like, because we have someone that works for us in London. I'm like, can I send this guy an air conditioning unit? And I'm asking a cultural question of my colleagues, a couple of people that work for me that are from London, here, right, in the building. And they were like, we just don't do that. No one has ACs over there. We just endure.
Really?
We endure. We do a fan.
Is it because of the
But,
age of the buildings?
Well, apparently, and again, I don't spend a lot of time over there, but apparently, like, there's just such a short period of time where this happens, like a week, and that goes back down to like normal temperatures.
Apparently,
Anyway.
they've been recording weather there for hundreds of years. And it was last week, I think, was the hottest night
right.
they've recorded in 350 years or something.
I saw this picture, and it was, I'm sure you saw in the news, that the Heathrow Airport runway started to melt. And so they had to stop flights and like patch a big square.
Did they make it out of chocolate?
I don't know. I assume maybe the consistency of stuff like that.
I'm sure.
Were there
So
Oompa
if you're listening to this in London right now,
I know.
we're sorry for guessing about your.
But it's an
your
interesting
issues.
cultural discussion.
But well, what I was going to say
That's
was
comforting,
we
though.
have it good over here. We've got central AC, all those kind of things. Like, and
Most
it's
of us.
hot. We were talking about how hot it was. Most of us have that. Over in many other parts of the world, they don't, and not because they can't afford it. It's just because it's not a thing that they do.
Right.
And hey, there's something to be said for that.
Even in this country, there are parts of the country that don't have AC because it's the same reason, like West Coast, Northern West Coast,
Right, exactly.
and
I get that,
Northern
yeah.
East Coast.
Yeah.
But
It's been like 7-10 days of. I think I wanted to say it's around 100 degrees.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's hot.
it is warm, gentlemen. Speaking of warm, how's business? Is it warm or is it dull or is it
Dull. Oh,
for you guys?
never dull.
We're busy.
Are you?
We could, we're always looking for some new opportunities, but I think right now, we're busy, kind of status quo, doing some interesting projects, I think, which is always fun for me anyways. It's more interesting when we're doing some new stuff.
Have you seen, either one of you guys seen the effects of the economy at all, up or down for your business?
I haven't seen a lot down yet, but there's been a lot of discussions with clients of their next fiscal year, what they're looking to do, what they're looking to change with their budgets. And so I think a lot of companies are preparing and they're making some minor adjustments right now, or at least the forecasted adjustments. I know yesterday, there's more and more companies, they're doing their financial reports, but they're also either not hiring, going through a hiring freeze. I think it was at Google yesterday said they're going into a hiring freeze, and then there's a lot of companies who are actually letting go a portion of their staff. A lot of the automotives are doing that. Tesla started it a few months ago with 10% of their workforce. Rivian, new electric car company, did 5%.
Saw that.
And a lot of these more, and it's okay. It's something you have to do, but it's.
Do you guys think that this is? I mean, I know your answer, but and obviously we have a vested interest, but this is a big opportunity for agencies to really step in during these times, and rather than seeing, oh, they're going to cut us. It's a big opportunity to really talk to clients and think through how you can be really ramp up your business during this time, because they are looking to cut back their own staff, cut expenses, but certainly do not want to cut their place in the marketplace and marketing and bringing in sales for them.
Yeah.
What do you guys think?
No,
about
I
that?
mean, I agree. We haven't seen. So I was going to say, like, across our clients, and we're in the e-com space, we are seeing more people, more brands that are down than they have been in the last several years. They're not doing bad. They're just down on their numbers. A lot of them are down on their projections. And so we are seeing a slowdown. I don't think any of them are surprised by that. A lot of them are we're making preparations in certain ways. But it does seem like consumer spending from our perspective in the market, which is e-com, is down. Or at least people are not spending in all the same places. I have several that are way up too. So it's not like, but I can tell, just having done this a long time, like from our perspective, it is, there does seem to be a lessening of purchasing. From the agency side of things and services, it's interesting because I think, in my experience, I went through 2008 and, or the 2008 era, right? It lasted for a bunch of years. And it is different. It was different than it is right now. But I remember the same thing that you just said, right? Like there was more opportunity if you saw it that way. Like I think you have to see it, and I do think if you're a really big agency, like that might be more like that could present some of those challenges. But for small and medium, and I'm not saying that small and medium is what I know. I think there's an opportunity to grow, because you're right. Like people are laying off staff. People may not be hiring. If they're hiring, they may not be hiring at the same salary rate. And when you're talking about specialists, right, the people that, the CMOs, like the people with experience, well, that you bring on as a brand that kind of do some of the agency stuff, those things, I think you'll find a lot of brands that can't afford that in a salaried role. And
I mean, if I were a small to medium agency right now, I'd be focused on helping your clients create efficiencies and helping them, show them how you can be that stimulus to create those efficiencies and to reduce overall cost. Because larger agencies, they have one problem, is that they're kind of fat and they're big and they're slower. Where sometimes larger agencies focus on the ROI, but not. Maybe a small agency could come up with more efficiencies to save more money in the end and be efficient as well and create the ROI that they're hired to do. But if you can also do the efficiency things, show them, hey, if you just did this, we would not have to spend here, so that you basically are paying for yourself. If you can show you're paying for yourself even more, like then you become that value. I think that's a thing that would be great to do during these times, just because it's otherwise the company is going to be forced to make other cuts, and sometimes those cuts they're going to be internal, but they might be external too, with vendors, and we've all seen that before. So
do you have an opinion on if brands cut back on their marketing budget, which traditionally happens if there are challenges? So I don't know. This is an if, right? We don't know what that looks like. But if there are downward pressures and they have to cut down on their budget, back in the 2008 era of the economic issue that we had, the economic issue. In that era, they cut back on traditional marketing and they saw digital marketing as an opportunity that was a lot lower cost. Okay, now that obviously the landscape is different. Most people are in digital marketing mostly, right? And it's expensive. Or they're, the traditional digital marketing platforms are expensive. And so if they cut back, what would they cut back? And what are the opportunities, the digital marketing that there was in 2008, what is that today?
Well, I've been talking to a couple media buyers. That's all they do, is they buy a lot of media, and they're seeing some major changes in the last 3 months with companies spending, but also with conversions. And they're seeing that their money, that people are searching for things less because they're not buying as much, so they're not searching for things they want to buy. And then also the spending the budgets are starting to be cut.
So what's the more efficient marketing spend? If is there one?
Well, you mean efficient marketing spend?
Is there
like agency cost versus media cost?
No, is there like a digital? No, I'm talking about like what was the digital marketing in 2008 was the savior. It was like okay, I don't have to do radio, TV, and billboards. I can't afford that anymore. I'm going to do this digital marketing thing, which is a lot less expensive. I don't know if it'll work. I don't know if I believe in it yet.
See, what I've seen though with 2008, it was a companies just freaked out and put a pause to everything because it happened so quickly. This has been like we're frogs in the frying pan right now. We've seen this coming. I mean, it's not. We're not shocked by this at all.
Well, the freak out happened in March 2020.
Yeah, and then 2008 was a lot quicker, and it was a pretty quick rebound afterwards, to be honest with you. But so what I saw was companies immediately just putting a hold on spend because they were trying to get a handle on they were bleeding and they're trying to get a handle on it. So I saw that marketing dollars were just all across the board halted. I don't think that's the case this time, though. I think the case right now is that it's slowly just, it's 5%, it's 10%. It's the Teslas, the Rivians or whatever other companies just doing, 10% of their fat. And I think that's healthy because I think there's always 10% of fat you could cut out of your business. And I think they're just using the opportunity to do it.
I think this is an opportunity for agencies, and this is not applicable to everyone, but I think it's an opportunity to look at the niches that you're in, look at the verticals that you're serving, and say, okay, how can I continue to serve consumer e-commerce companies? But if that's going to be, if that's going to constrict to some degree, is there other ways that I can, not to use an overused word, pivot into some other things that don't constrict during these times, i.e., maybe it's healthcare, maybe it's some type of, more evergreen environment to say, because here's the reality that I've seen is that everything is going to consumer based. Like the pandemic changed everything. It forced everyone online. So even things like healthcare, I use that as an example because I think it's one of the bigger ones, or education or other things, it went from, okay, I've got to go to the doctor and to a hospital to get my information and have a doctor treat me, to I'm doing everything online. Yeah, I'm in control. I'm the consumer, not just the patient. Same thing with education, higher education, and all these other verticals that have become digital and quote e-commerce related. I think now's the time to really kind of, if you're going to shift, start looking at those things, because those things are going to, like a plumber, right? Like you're always going to need a plumber. What are those verticals that maybe you've been considering or thinking about that you can go in and apply the knowledge that you've had and that you've had successes in these other verticals, and jump in and say, we are a out of the box thinkers. We've been successful here. We're now, give us a shot in these verticals, and I know that can be a big thing to think about in times like these. But if we've learned anything from the pandemic, we saw, and we even talked about this. You can go back a couple of years to when we started. There were companies that went from, we're going to lose our business altogether as an e-commerce, to now we sell durable medical equipment or PPE equipment or, hand sanitizer that was, something else. So I think this is another opportunity like that for agencies.
Thinking like your agency, like if you were like a financial advisor, your financial advisor is always going to put you into products that have a lot of hedge during certain times. Right? There's aggressive products that they're going to put you in. There's going to be very conservative products. And it's the same thing, I think, with your agency, that you have to have a good, mix of clients that you're, like you said, that will sustain themselves when the market changes or there's a different temperature in the market. None of us obviously predicted the pandemic and what would happen with that and things, and everyone seemed to have to pivot a little bit, but there is more. Obviously, we saw healthcare probably sustain more through that. A a lot of different products. And I don't know about you guys. I know some companies are just pure play, right? They have a certain niche, and this is what they go after, and that niche is all 100% of their clients is within that niche. And sometimes those that's tough if you get hit hard because of a economy turn. And but I think diversity is good, and it also helps you explore and learn other industries, grow as an agency, learn some other techniques that some industries do that other industries don't, and you can apply them to different things. And so I think it's that might be a good thing.
Okay. We'll go into healthcare.
What? Yeah, I mean, I don't know. We've always been diverse.
That's a great idea, and it's not one that I haven't considered in our situation in our business. But I do think that you're right. Like, you have to. I believe in specialization, but I do think, and that's where I've seen my success. But I think as you zoom out, as you specialize, you kind of have to zoom out and see what's changed on the landscape.
Right.
Yeah.
Because if you're really good at something and then all of a sudden it becomes more applicable to more people.
Yeah.
The other thing that I want to say, this sounds counterintuitive.
I just wanted to say one thing. It's not just healthcare.
Right.
Funeral homes are good too. Because they're
true.
Yeah, people are buying that stuff online now.
Yeah, funeral homes.
Oh, okay. The other thing, this sounds counterintuitive, but all of our clients were essentially recommending that they raise prices, okay, because they need to, and also because like it or not, when everyone's raising prices, it's not a shock to customers when you raise your prices. Okay, but there's a real need for it, and I would say as an agency, I think it might be time to raise your prices. We've raised our prices. We've needed to raise our prices.
We did
by
too.
the way, our costs have all gone up, and almost across the board, human resources gone up.
So have you seen that you're having to pay not just new hires but existing hires? Are they asking now, like saying, "Hey, this is getting tough"? Do you feel that way? I know it's hard.
I had 1 week where like 3 people asked me for a raise.
Really?
And I'm like,
yeah.
Well, you're the last person, so no. I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Well, we try not to give arbitrary raises. I have a philosophical problem with arbitrary. The idea of every year you just get a 10% raise. Like, I like the idea of growing. I think growth is important. I just like to attach it to, let's just be real, it needs to be attached to business growth, value creation, productivity.
Yes.
And so we always try and attach it to that. But all that to say is, our costs have gone up, and our pricing has had to go up as well. And honestly, it's something that people can stomach because they expect it too. Right. So like, I'm meaning clients in the marketplace, all of our clients, so consumer brands, their prices have gone up, some significantly. And we've seen and I'm not saying there won't be, but in those consumer plays, we haven't seen any negative for as far as like lower conversion rates, less traffic, anything like that so far. So, so that's one thing we're doing in this time, and I think if you're an agency, you can do.
Yeah, I think too, talking to your clients about what you offer that they can't provide internally, fixed cost, out of the box thinking, and you cannot. That's invaluable. Out of the box thinking. If I'm a CMO or director of marketing right now, looking at the potential changes that are coming specifically for shrinking my team, cutting cost, the one thing that I need creative thinking. I need to think out of the box. That's an area that you can really ramp up and sell, be more proactive about, putting that forward with clients, prospective new clients is,
I agree too. I mean, I think there can be a point where internally a CMO could rely on his agency a lot more than internally for those kind of things. And I think if you offer that as an agency, they may let some folks internally go, but they'll continue to rely on their agency because they're producing.
Yeah. Yeah, and we haven't talked about this, and maybe you guys might slightly disagree, but this is an opportunity too to go to look at your contracts, and again on that fixed pricing thing as they're all looking and say, how can we be flexible in order to keep you as a client and work with you through this time? And I know that during the pandemic, a lot of agencies did that, and it might be something to think about and to start planning and saying, not that you want to cut your rates at all, but maybe there's some creative ways that you can say, maybe we go from a, renewing a 12-month agreement to, 6-month, or maybe we do it shorter but at a higher rate so that you can at least have a fixed cost for a quarter instead of, trying to get something approved for a year or 6 months or whatever.
My only thought on that, and kind of the other side of it, is, in my experience, once you go down, it's really hard to go back up.
It's true. It's true.
But
once they go away, it's really hard not to replace that money.
Maybe. So what I would say is but sometimes away is better than there, at a certain rate. And so I think he's got to be aware of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But hopefully you're in a strong enough position, or you're building up a strong enough position where you can make those decisions in a healthy way, and you don't have to.
And I think the healthy way is honoring the relationship so that they're locked in. They're going to come back to you when things turn around. That's a good business relationship.
I had a discussion with one of our clients, and the CPI numbers are at 9% and we all know it's much higher than that of inflation this year. And we've had to kind of go around and change some of our pricing. In some places, we've raised it like 6%, where we hadn't raised it for clients in like 7 years. You know what I mean? So it was due anyways, but it's much less than CPI numbers, and we know the CPI numbers are not even correct. And so, there is something you have to do, and our clients were reasonable. I mean, they understood it completely. Like, yeah, we get it. We don't. They're feeling the pinch too, so they're like, well, we might have to do a little bit less, but we'll make do, And I think they were good conversations. They weren't hard, because it was reasonable. But I think it depends on what that looks like for you. And again, we strategically looked at it and go, okay, what would our current clients be able to absorb, that they're not going to see a loss in something next year, and they're not going to not do something because of our raises of our prices. And then, for a new business, what does that look like? Are we still competitive? Do we feel competitive? Do we, it's hard to know if you're competitive, not as an agency, because that's one of the things I have agencies, friends of mine all the time that say, can you give me what you charge? What do you charge for that? What do you charge for that? Because they don't know.
Right.
Sometimes,
That's why we're talking about it right here.
Yeah. So
no one does.
Another thing I think is a good opportunity right now is to explore other offerings for your clients, because I know in my experience over the years, you kind of get locked in, and your client most of the time knows you for one thing that you do as an agency. They've got a bazillion things on their plate. They have a staff of employees, and they use you for, okay, Medicake does e-commerce, and they're really good at setting up Shopify stores and helping us optimize that. That's what they know you as. Same thing with you, Brad. And so I think there's an opportunity now to go to them and said, hey, by the way, I know you had to let your creative director go, or your whatever. We do really good creative. Can I send you over some things? And maybe that's something that you might want. If you need help in that area, we can help. And so, as agencies, usually we have a pretty wide offering, usually wider than what the client's using us for. Not always, but a lot of time it's a good opportunity to have those conversations.
Yeah. Well, are there new business initiatives that you guys are launching at all? Like, are there any? We think there's an opportunity here, or we're going to expand or invest in this particular thing or area.
We're getting into some different industries that we haven't before, which I thought it's been interesting. I enjoy that because I learn a lot more. And we've been playing in this certain industry, and looks like we might get another client in that industry,
nice.
which has been.
Do you mind saying what it is?
Yeah, it's a trucking industry,
Nice.
and so the trucking industry is. It's an interesting industry. So one of our clients, they sell CPAP machines, and they have a specific company that is for insured folks. But there's also a paid cash portion of that. So if you don't have insurance, you pay cash for like a CPAP machine and things. But there's specifically the trucking industry has a lot of struggles with that because it's very litigious, and a lot of drivers have sleep apnea. They don't know it, or they're not using their CPAP machine and they know they have sleep apnea. And let's just say a driver gets into an accident. Well, it's a very litigious area where attorneys really take advantage of that with trucking companies. So this company is launching a new way to be able to prove to the trucking companies that if a driver, first of all, they're testing with this new technology that is not the same as they used to. So, anyways, it's a pretty cool thing. But now we're actually getting trucking companies that are hiring us.
That's cool.
There's a lot of money in that.
Yeah, I mean, logistics is huge, and so these are big logistics companies.
What do they hire you to do? What kind of work?
A lot of recruitment. Yeah, a lot of recruitment.
Okay.
Recruitment's big time for them, and we're launching some new ideas for them that they're like, this is great. We've never even. They have other agencies they've worked with in the past. And
it's funny you mention that. The floor where our agency is right now in the building, the floor on top of us, the top floor. I went up there. I don't know, for whatever reason one time, and I saw this office up there, and it looked like, that looks like a digital kind of agency or something. Mm-hmm. I asked someone, they go, yeah, they focus on the trucking industry.
Yeah, there's a few around that do that.
And over the last year, they've taken over the whole top floor. They've grown tremendously. Wow. All they do is focus on, and they do digital marketing, digital support, recruiting, other things for the trucking industry. So that's interesting that you said that.
And it's
what made you do that? Is it just that you happened to see an opportunity there, or you strategically chose that?
No, we didn't strategically choose it initially. It was a client that we were working on with that came up with this other product, and it was it was this trucking industry product specifically, or logistics. And so from there, we had that knowledge, a little bit more knowledge. And then we got an opportunity to, pitch a trucking company. We did. And we kind of came along with, hey, we do, this isn't like, there are pure play agencies that focus. But the problem is a lot of them have tested those pure plays, and they have this model that this doesn't fit them. You know what I mean? They put them in this, like, this is what we do for everyone. And they don't sometimes find out that some of what they do isn't really, So we come in there, and it's good. So it's a new industry. It's definitely different for us because a lot of stuff we do is technology, and this is kind of like, it's a staple though. I mean, it runs our country. So
well, it's another example of one of those. I'm always amazed. I brought up healthcare, and you brought up trucking. They're similar in that they are now getting into the online world, and they're like 10, 15 years behind. But in those industries, it's kind of like, Ken, we laughed back in the day when we worked together in the early 2000s was, it's kind of the Wild West because everybody was getting online. No one knew. You could experiment with different things. Everybody came to you as, there wasn't a lot of competition in the digital agency space. I think it's kind of like that in these industries that have been holdouts. Like you think of a trucker and you're like, well, what does he need digital marketing? Well, they all get online. They all have internet connection. And they're all trying to figure it out themselves.
It reminds me a lot of healthcare marketing. Back in the day, healthcare wasn't very competitive when it came to marketing. It's like you kind of were a hospital or something, or a provider. But now, in the last 20 years, it has become hyper competitive. The trucking industry is very similar because it's the truck drivers. Right, there's a need for truck drivers now, and shortage. And so when that happens, these trucking companies really struggle. It's highly competitive now, so they have to stand out. And so they look at other ways to stand out and get recruitment and increase their brand. And, the people want to drive for a company that they really like. And so it's,
we should probably have an episode on the trickle down effect of that, because that the trucking industry niche or vertical, the reason that it's exploded for a number of reasons, but everybody was forced online. Everybody then is now like e-commerce. Everyone is using e-commerce. Well, how do you think that stuff gets delivered to people's houses? And everybody expects it to be there within 2 days or however long. So you have this whole like logistics industry that's, you didn't have as much before. It's just grown. So I think, and the same thing with healthcare, right? Like people couldn't or were afraid to go to the doctor. So everybody innovated telehealth the last 2.5 years. And now you've got people that are like, well, you're not the God complex that a doctor has either implied or whatever in the last 100 years. That's kind of going away. Like, I want to own my own healthcare. I know what's best for me.
Yeah.
I need you to consult with me and give me your expertise, but here's what I know about, holistically what I need for myself. It's more of a consumer mindset than a patient mindset. So it's really interesting, those trickle down effects of change and how it affects us as agencies. How about you? You brought it up.
Yeah. I was just curious. Like I'm always thinking about that kind of stuff. So there's a few things. One is like from a services standpoint, like a big part of our difference in the e-com marketing space is the fact that we focus on what we call like healthy growth. What's interesting is traditionally, I would say, I don't know, the majority of e-commerce marketers or just marketers in general are like growth, but there's not a lot of focus on profit. And so a lot of our strategies and philosophies have to do with that. And what I'm seeing is it's almost, it's surprising, and it can be a little bit, like sad, but you see, I've got maybe 5 stories. These are not our clients, just kind of peers and people around where it's like, hey, we were doing ridiculous numbers and, went out of business, just recently because the economy was the tailwind, right, to all that kind of stuff. So you could kind of like cover up a lot of problems, and you could grow at like high rates, and everyone would say, oh, we're doing so well because we're growing so much and all that kind of stuff. And no one's really looking at profit or the health of that growth. And then for whatever reason that slows down, the economy slows down, people stop buying as much, and the whole thing blows up. And I've seen many stories like that. You mentioned the pivot that happened in 2020. Well, a lot of, in unhealthy ways, a lot of brands have like pivoted, and I know 2 in particular, and there's many more, but like there's 2 that I just talked to, and they're struggling because what they did was they had a great business, and then 2020 hit, and they pivoted because they were just like, I would say they got greedy, and and I can get it, but it's like, oh, a lot of people are buying this thing that's at the bottom of our product line. They had like whatever type of thing that turned out to be hot in 2020. Like they never expected it. 1 million people started buying it. They focused their entire company around that. They left the rest of their business, which was growing nicely, and then that stopped. And now they're struggling because they have to rebuild their entire business.
Like hand sanitizer.
And so my approach has always been like an aggressively balanced one, if that makes sense. And so that philosophy in this kind of climate is really important, and it's rare. And so that is one kind of strategic initiative. So what are we doing there? Like the services that we provide, the messaging that around our company, and especially the education that we provide is happening around that area. The other thing is, you guys know about this, but I don't know if I talked about it on the podcast. Like, over the last several years, we've put together essentially a capital fund for e-commerce companies, or direct consumer companies of a certain type. I say e-commerce because that's kind of the buzzword, but the truth is like they're direct consumer businesses, that sell primarily through e-commerce channels, but like, they sell in stores, they sell retail, wholesale, those kind of things. And so we launched that officially earlier this year. It's called Doe Capital. DOUGH, because Medicake dough. And so we're doing that, and there's a lot of we're seeing a lot of interest, and we're starting to see a lot of traction on that front. It's a model that we've developed over the last few years, and so it's not like an opportunistic play. And honestly, it may not even be the best economic climate for that kind of thing, depending on your position. In our position, I think it's actually a really good time to do it. But we launched that, and that was not intentional around the kind of economic climate right now, but it just happens to be something that we're really investing into, and I'm seeing traction there. We acquire direct to consumer companies, help them to grow, over the course of a few years, using our team. We have investors and those kind of things, and then we exit them. So
nice.
Cool.
Very nice.
I'm a big believer in the flywheel. And so I think the so what, if you're listening to this, from my perspective, is there's a book, I can't remember what the name of it is, that kind of introduced me to this concept a long time ago, but it's the idea that, like, you've got these kind of prongs in your business, and you need to connect. I mean, ideally you have multiple that play into each other. So we have our services that play into our education, or our capital that then play into our education, and that's the kind of flywheel. And so you're not just slugging away at one thing and trying to keep momentum there, but ideally that thing is driving momentum in another area. And it doesn't have to be overly complex, and some people can be spread really thin, but the idea is, like, what is your flywheel? So that, like, you push one, and then you push the next one, and you push the next one, and, like, it starts spinning, and they all feed into each other.
Yeah.
That's my strategic goal. If you're wondering why I'm doing these things.
Yeah. So basically, if Doe Capital, which I'm assuming it has and it will, continues to grow, you can then, for instance, once you get a company, put a little money into it, you believe in it, then Medicaid can drive its growth, which then feeds money back into.
Well, yeah, that's maybe at, like, one level, the flywheel. I would say, you've got services. Our services branch, like, provides really great services for brands, and also, like, we get a lot of lead flow that we can't help. So the question is, what do we do with that? And so on one level, like, there's lead flow to the capital arm. So now we have an ability to say, when we're talking to a client or a prospect, and we have the ability to help on the capital side of things, we're selective there. So this has to meet a certain criteria, but, like, once we see that criteria, we have the opportunity to help that. In the venture area, like, those become clients, owned clients. And then, we have our education arm, which takes what we learn and what we develop as far as, like, our IP, and helps people that can't afford us at all. And ideally is 100% scalable, hands off. It's not a human resource intensive thing. And so those three arms are kind of like three arms of that flywheel, and the idea is, like, they kind of feed into each other.
Well, this is a good opportunity, I would think, during these times that we're talking about, to really, like, work on that, look at it, and push that flywheel down.
I like the visual idea, though, of that, because I think a lot of agencies in some ways do that. They start out with, like you said, the service side, and then they say, you know what, we make a lot of money for our clients. We do this. Why don't we create our own IP? Why don't we launch our own products? Or why don't we invest in other companies and participate in their businesses, because we have this expertise, and so I think that's a
really important pursuit. Again, so, like, it may be
and
hard.
They feed off each other. Right, that's what I like about it.
Yeah, right. Like, the idea, like, but I think it's a really important pursuit for agencies, because, a lot of people would say trading time for money is like the worst trade in history. We all do it, but like the idea is like when you're only providing services in return for money, you're not getting much more than that, right? You're not building an asset. And so, but the truth is like in my perspective, like I see agencies or any service provider as their asset is the experience and the knowledge that they acquire and create. And so one way that you can exploit that is through letting people pay you for it. But that's just one way. And, you know, if you don't think about it that way, like you might just be in that way, and that's okay. But I think if you're only exploiting it that way, you're probably not getting the most out of it, at least for your future potential. Now, the other side of that coin is like, you know, it's hard to get new things going. It can spread you thin, and so like you have to be aware. Like we put a lot of those things on the shelf because we needed to focus for many years, and we just didn't have the bandwidth to do all those things well, and it would have been a waste of time and money. And it's only recently that we've had the bandwidth and the resource to invest into some of these things, and they're still small and growing. But the point is I just believe in that pursuit. I believe in the idea that how are you pursuing leveraging? You know, what is the asset that you're creating? And I think in the agency space, it's knowledge.
Yeah,
like
that's good.
And so then how do you exploit that in a bunch of different places, right? How do you grow that? How do you protect it? You know, in one way, instead of seeing it as trading time for money, you can see it as the best education you could never pay for, that you're getting paid for.
Yeah.
Right? That is the other side of that perspective. And I think if you look at it like that, it's like, wow, like, I mean, how much do you pay when you go to Harvard?
That's right.
Or something like that. Like, anyway, Ivy League schools were very expensive, right? And
I went to Harvard Community College. It wasn't too expensive.
So when you pay for these schools, right, like you don't get a fraction of the experience that you get when you're working in an agency. You get to talk to work inside of like tons of different businesses. You get paid to work inside of businesses.
That's what I felt like my whole career is. I've been able to be a kind of not just a fly on the wall, but a participator and learn. And sometimes when you get into an industry, you're absorbing so much knowledge because they're throwing words at you. You don't, phrases they use in the industry, and you're learning all this stuff. But
it's fascinating to me.
It's fascinating.
When you get in, you're like,
yeah,
really,
the
trucking industry.
Yeah,
like
business is business.
Right?
Let's just face it. I mean, it's just they use different vernaculars, but the reality is you do learn a lot of nuances that are really cool that you can apply.
Do your kids? I don't know that your kids are old enough yet, Ken. But Brad, do your kids say, "Dad, why do you know so much random, trivial information about stuff?" And it's because I've worked in an agency for years, and I've had to know all this stuff.
They do say that to me, but they say it in a way like, "Dad, you're rambling. You just
exactly.
ramble all the
That
time
too.
about nonsense, about stuff I don't even know."
It's like, how do you know that? And who cares?
That's right. Nobody cares.
I mean, and once you're aware of it that way, I think you can appreciate it more, and I think you can open your eyes to the opportunity, whatever that is in your life. But yeah, I just don't know where else you don't get that education anywhere else.
I know.
Yeah, that's good.
Even working in a company, like you don't get it working in a company.
No way. It's amazing how much, and maybe it's just my age at this point. And I'm not saying this to be like sound arrogant because I feel like I know a fraction, but it's amazing of how much instinct that I feel like I have, like just top of mind stuff, just because of the wealth of knowledge that have been shared with me my whole career, and I don't even realize it. I can talk to anybody about industries that they work in because I probably played in their industry a lot to at least know and have strong, decent conversations with people and understand what they do and understand it deeper than the average person. But I don't know if, in the end, I don't know if that helps me with anything, but
that's the thing.
What I do find is that businesses deal with the same challenges. They just call it something different sometimes, but they're really the same challenges. And there is a lot of similarities. You just, like I said, you got to know the vernacular and a little bit of nuances. But I find it fun and fascinating. That's why we're diverse, is because I enjoy the diversity. Sometimes I wish I was more pure play and I just stuck in a lane, because I think sometimes it's easier to build process around that. It's easier to be more efficient in that world, in that one lane. But I don't know.
Yeah.
Sorry,
so
I was
something
just-
think,
I was just
something to
rambling.
No,
think
that's
about
good.
at the end here is like, what is
The
like,
takeaway.
what are those things? Like, what is do you have a flywheel in your agency? Or,
Yeah.
Or do you, or realize the knowledge and experience that you have the opportunity to create as an asset? And then what are you doing with that?
That's good. That's good, gentlemen. Well, try to stay cool this rest of the
We've
summer.
got it easy here.
I think it's going to be 100 today here, close to that. Yesterday driving home, my thermometer in my car said 100.
Yeah. Well,
That's hot.
sit by the AC, and until next time, gentlemen, we'll talk to you soon.
All right.
See you.
Bye.
Be cool.